You're watching Gearz.
Hey, welcome to Gearz and our Cheetah project, which has absolutely nothing to do with the fast jungle cat and everything to do with the wild 60 sports car that Bill Thomas put together to compete with Carroll Shelby's Cobras. Now, obviously, since there were only a few Cheetahs built, you're not going to find something like this sitting in a barn waiting for you to restore it. No, the only way for you to get something this unique is to build one yourself. Fortunately, there is a company out there called Cheetah Evolution that will allow you to do it. That is what this car is. Now, so far, we've walked you through the construction of the frame and the chassis and the body, but we haven't shown you the layout of the suspension and the steering. That's what we're going to do now. Okay, as you can see, the rear suspension is out of a C4 Corvette, and it's been completely gone through and rebuilt by Henderson Driveline. They put in a new ring and pinion, new bearings, new seals, and a limited slip differential. Now, Henderson Driveline will also custom build half shafts and drive shafts to handle whatever power you're going to throw in your car, so they're a good company to know. Now, you Corvette guys will notice that there's no shocks over here in the normal spot. It's because there's no room for them on a Cheetah. So the guys at Cheetah Evolution came up with this really cool cantilever shock system that mounts these adjustable QA1 shocks up here on top. Now, to change the setting on the shock, you come in through a panel here on the top, and to change the ride height of the shock, you come in through a panel behind the seats. The rear brakes use stock GM calipers and special brackets from Vet Brakes and Products to fit 12-inch Willwood rotors, and the side forelinks are adjustable, so you can dial in your suspension exactly how you want it. Up front, you'll also find stock Corvette upper and lower control arms and spindles, but we've also added to that QA1 adjustable shocks and huge 13-inch Willwood rotors and 6-piston calipers, which means when we hit the pedal, this thing's going to stop no matter how fast we're going. Now, speaking of pedals, take a look. This car is set up with a Willwood 3-pedal unit that gives us full adjustability and maintenance of the clutch, brake, and gas pedals, and is perfect for a tight space like on a Cheetah. All right, what about steering? Well, that's pretty similar to what you'd expect to find on any modern street rod. We have a tilt Flaming River column that runs through the firewall, down into a steering shaft with numerous U-joints, into a Flaming River rack and pinion unit. Now notice we're not using power steering on this. A car this light doesn't need it. Now, notice that tape down there on those aluminum panels. That's not finished. The panels come with the car, but it's up to you to mount the panels how you're going to do them, because everybody's going to build their car a little different. Here's how we're going to mount ours. We're going to use these polished stainless steel button head screws from Gardner Westcott to hold the panels in place and give us a cool rivet look. And it's important that the screw line be level or it's going to look weird. So first we're going to lay out a plumb line that follows the center of the tubing behind the panel. Then we'll mark and drill our holes. And we're putting our screws 4 inches apart to keep the panel tight against the tubing. Now, there's no doubt that this looks good, but if you'll come in here, notice that we have an edge sticking up and a gap because obviously the tubing is rounded and this looks unfinished. So we're going to take a soft hammer and slowly roll the edge of the aluminum down so we have a nice contoured finished look. Then we'll take a 3M scuff pad and brush the aluminum to make it uniform and give it a cool finish. Now, make sure when you're scuffing that you don't change directions or patterns, because if you do, it'll look awful and you'll need to brush it back out. Finally, we'll coat the aluminum with shark hide to keep it from tarnishing or corroding. Okay, we've talked about the suspension, the steering, the brakes, and we fit these aluminum panels on the front of the Cheetah. But the big question I know everybody's asking is what's going here? What engine are we going to put in this? And that's a good question, because Cheetah Evolution will set the car up to fit whatever engine you want to put in it. Ford, Chevy, Dodge, Toyota, Honda, doesn't matter. Plenty of room up here. They can fit anything in there. But since the original Cheetah came with a small block Chevy, and it was Chevy's answer to the Cobra, we figured that it's only fitting to put a small block Chevy in it. But not the small block Chevy you're thinking. Something that's new. Something that packs big block power in a small package. I'm talking the LSX 454. The LSX 454 was designed by GM to be the biggest, baddest LS-based crate engine on the market. Starting with an LSX cast iron block, it was stuffed with forged steel rods and forged aluminum pistons. And those were connected to a forged steel crankshaft to build a bulletproof bottom end. In the middle, you'll find a hot roller cam, and on top, special aluminum LSX heads cap it off and provide a long block that kicks out 620 horsepower and 600 foot-pounds of torque on pump gas. And we're gonna stick that engine into a car that only weighs 2,200 pounds and sits on a 90-inch wheelbase. And it's a good thing they call this a Cheetah, because there's very few things that are gonna outrun this car. Now obviously the LSX 454 comes as a long block, which is perfect for this kind of project, because it allows you to finish out the engine exactly how you want it, so you got something really unique. And the aftermarket is full of all kinds of parts to help you do that. But before you jump into an engine project, there's something that you need to know.
Now, quick tip, brought to you by E3 Spark Plugs, born to burn.
When you're dealing with a crate engine, especially a long or a short block, well, it's pretty obvious that there's some pieces missing that you need to supply. And one thing that's really easy to overlook is hardware, because most crate engines won't have all of it, and most of the parts that you buy won't supply it. So a pretty smart thing to do is pick up an engine hardware kit like this from ARP, because they have all the hardware that you're going to need for your engine. From valve covers to headers to oil pan, it's all there. And it's in polished stainless steel. You're not going to find this down at your local hardware store. So if you don't want to spend your day wasting time looking for hardware you're not going to find, laying it out before you start the project is a great way to alleviate a lot of aggravation. If you'd like to learn some more tips to make your life easier in the shop, check out the tips page on the website. Okay, the first thing that we're going to put on this engine is some accessories up here on the front. Now you can go to GM and get the original stuff, but it's pretty ugly and it goes everywhere. So we went to March Performance and got one of their style track systems for the LS engine. Now check this out. It's got all the pulleys, it's got all the brackets, everything is polished and clear coated so it's not going to tarnish on you. Then you've got your accessories, air conditioning compressor, high output alternator, even the water pump. Now this stuff will not only do the job, but it will also completely change the way that your LS engine looks. Check it out. We'll start by laying out the new brackets on the water pump and then bolting everything to the engine, followed by the other accessory brackets. Then we'll bolt on the air conditioning compressor and the alternator. Finally, we'll bolt on the hub adapter and the crank pulley. Followed by the water pump pulley. And that is it. All you have to do is put on the belt and you're done. Now, there is no question that is a really cool looking system, but that's not the only reason we're using it. No, the style track system is extremely narrow. Notice that nothing sticks out the side past the valve covers. Also, it only comes forward about 8 inches, which makes this the perfect setup to put in a tight engine compartment. So that takes care of the front. Now we're going to move down the side and deal with some motor mounts. We're going to put on these motor plates that we got from Hooker that are going to allow us to mount a traditional small block Chevy motor mount. Now, since we wanted something that was really going to pop, we went to Speedway Motors and got a pair of these polished stainless steel small block Chevy motor mounts. Now these are going to mount right to the hooker plate. Hey, we're back and prepping up a 620 horse LSX 454 to stuff it into a tube chassis missile called the Cheetah. Now so far we've bolted on a bunch of accessories and we've put on the motor mounts. Now it's time to turn our attention to this side of the engine. And to put anything besides a stick in a car like this is just wrong. Now, since we've already shown you we got 3 pedals in this thing, you know where we're going with it. So this is what we're going to put in. Now, American Powertrain is well known for putting together complete transmission systems for your project. So they were the perfect choice for something crazy like a Cheetah. And we got everything. Check this out. We got a flywheel. We got the pressure plate. We got the clutch. We got the hydraulic throwout bearing. We have a blow-proof bell housing, and of course that huge Magnum 6-speed transmission, and the White Lightning shifter. The first thing to go in is the pilot bearing, then the backing plate for the scatter shield, followed by the flywheel. Now, after you've wiped the flywheel down to remove any kind of protective coating, you're ready to put on the clutch and the pressure plate. An American Powertrain makes this easy by not only including all the hardware, but also the clutch alignment tool. The blow-proof bell housing or scatter shield goes on next, and it's designed to work with the backing plate to completely envelop the clutch and protect you from shrapnel in case the clutch blows up. If you're going to be driving your car hard, this is a wise thing to invest in, and it's mandatory on most racetracks. The next step is to mount this hydraulic throwout bearing to the transmission using this supplied adapter. This is one of the key elements of a modern clutch system because it completely does away with any mechanical linkage and allows you to push a heavy clutch without wearing your leg muscles out. Once the tranny's prepped, it's just a matter of bolting it to the engine. And this is where having an engine hoist is really nice, because these big Tremec transmissions are heavy. And that is it. All put together, ready to go in the car, except for a starter. And we need something with a lot of torque to handle 11-to-1 compression. So we went to Mezier and got one of their True Start LS starters. Now, as you can see, this thing is low profile and has extremely high torque. And Mezier's been building starters for race cars for years. So you know this thing's going to handle the heat and the abuse. It's not going to come apart on us. Now it's time to stick the drivetrain in the car. It's kicking out! It's kicking out! And there's no question that the engine is a tight fit in this thing. But believe it or not, there's enough room to get to everything, including the starter. Now, I know that some of you are probably thinking, there is no way that that engine and transmission just bolted in like that. It's got to be some sort of TV magic. No, not on this show. The only thing that's magic about it is getting one of these body-in-white component cars. You tell the guys at Cheetah Evolution what engine, what transmission you're going to use. They'll set it up for it as they're building the chassis, and then it just bolts in when you're ready to do it. That way you get to spend your time on all the other stuff that needs to be done, like paint and interior and plumbing and wiring and of course the exhaust system. Now if you'll remember, the original Cheetah had side exhaust. That's because there's a belly pan up underneath these things. There's no way to tuck an exhaust up underneath. So we need a very unique set of headers. They're right over here. These are from a company called Ultimate Headers, and once you see them, you're going to understand why they're called that. Now they start with 321 stainless steel tubing because it's incredibly strong and durable, and then they connect it to these very unique flanges, which are incredibly strong also, and they're not going to crack and warp. Now also notice, you don't see any welds here. Everything is all smoothed down in radius, so these things are going to flow like crazy. Now, look at this. See how tight that bend is? That's impossible with a regular tubing bender. They use what's called an investment cast bend that allows them to make this tight of a radius without making this part of the tubing thin, which of course can cause breakage down the road. Then once they're done, they put a high temperature coating on them, so these things will literally last forever. Now, of course, they've got headers for most street machines and muscle cars, but they will also custom make headers for something crazy like an LS and a Cheetah. So, let's see how they fit. The headers flow right out the side and over the footwells, just like in the original cars, except there's a lot more clearance to keep your feet from getting too hot. And the fit around the steering and the tube frame are right where they should be.
Tool Tech, brought to you by Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals.
You know, one of the most common tools that you'll find in a shop is a floor jack, but it's also the one that has the most potential to do damage to you or your vehicle if you don't use it right or if you choose the wrong one. Now, obviously, using a floor jack's pretty simple. You pump the handle and you jack things up. But when it comes to choosing the right one, you know, a lot of you guys are like, what? You mean there's some other choices? Yeah, there are. Take a look. The typical floor jack that people are buying today are these lightweight aluminum jacks because they look cool and they're easy to handle. So they're great for street rods or race cars. But their lifting capacity is generally low, about 3,000 pounds. So heavy trucks, Jeeps, and even some muscle cars are beyond the capacity of most of these. At the other end of the scale, there's this massive 10-ton unit that'll lift virtually anything you can roll in. But they're really big, they're not very maneuverable, they're not very low profile, and they may not lift high enough. If you think you need a super low profile jack with a very high lifting range, well, there are jacks that have that, but be aware that you may find its weight capacity is similar to the smaller aluminum jack, about 3,000 pounds. Of course, probably the best all-around floor jack is the steel framed unit with a 2.5 or 3.5 ton capacity because they offer a nice blend of maneuverability, strength, and lifting range. But just like there's not one any particular wrench that works with every job, there's not one particular floor jack that works with every project. And it's up to you to know what you've got, what its capacity is, and how to use it. Because if you mess up with a wrench, okay, you slip off and you bust your knuckles. You mess up with a floor jack, you're gonna bust up a lot more than your knuckles.
What are you working on? Brought to you by Woodward Fabrication, selling quality metalworking equipment since 1966.
Today's What Are You Working On is a story of two friends. Now, sometimes a friend can talk you into doing something good. Sometimes they can talk you into doing something bad. We're going to let you decide which one this is. Now, the first guy's name is Rick Campbell. He's from Hernando, Mississippi. And his buddy had a 1970 Dodge Charger, but it wasn't any old Charger. This one was the rare Panther paint car. Check this out. Now, the car was nice, but it was all original. It had been repainted, new vinyl top on it, but it was boring. It said it had the 318 in it, automatic air conditioning, basically a cruiser car. And his buddy came to him and said, Rick, I want some more power out of this car. And Rick, being the good buddy that he is, said, you need to put a late model Hemi in this thing. And his buddy said, you know, Rick, I want you to do that for me. So Rick dug into it. Now, the first thing he did is he pulled out that old 318, stuck in a 5.7 Hemi from an 07 Ram 1500, and then behind it he put a 904 automatic transmission to handle the abuse of the driver. But he wanted to keep it looking original. He said it was real important that this car looked like it came from the factory with this Hemi. So they upgraded the air conditioning and the other accessories to make this look like a factory deal. And as you can see, it looks really good. So Rick, to recognize you being such a good friend and talking your buddy into putting some heat into that Panther, we're gonna hook you up with one of these shrinker stretchers from Woodward Fab. This is a great tool for rebuilding rusty areas around a windshield or doors or trunks. You get a lot of use out of that. Also, we're gonna give you one of our brand new project planning books. This is a book that will help you lay out a project and stay on budget and follow it all the way through. And we're gonna give you one of our new Gearz t-shirts and might even throw one in for your buddy. Now, the rest of you guys, if you wanna get in on this, you wanna get your project featured on the show, just go to the website, click on Gearz Nation, and submit a profile of your project. We pull all of our What Are You Working Ons and all of our On the Road segments right off of Gearz Nation. Also, don't forget to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that social media stuff, because we've always got cool stuff going on there too. All right, it's time for you to get out there and start working on something. We'll see you next time.